do these pick up from a good distance?
Sure.
Or should I lean into them? Not privy to the controller's secret findings in 19... The bank wanted as much of the Penn Square loan participation business as they could get. My division, which included Oklahoma, was the fastest growing and one of the most profitable divisions in the bank. Obviously, we would not have had as heavy a concentration of loans with Penn Square if we knew of its internal problems.
Massey appeared at the county courthouse Tuesday afternoon. Massey had been charged earlier in the day with negligent homicide. His appearance in Judge A.R. Swank's courtroom culminated a day Massey would like to forget. It started when police spokesman Tom Mundy announced a decision by Chief Lloyd Gramling.
The review board found that the officer was in violation of departmental policies and procedures. The review board also recommended that the officer be terminated. Chief Gramling concurred with the findings of the review board and with their recommendation. The officer was terminated this morning.
Massey's problems began August 10th. He was involved in a car accident at the intersection of Southwest 29th and Meridian. 36-year-old Dorothy Carlson and her 7-year-old son Brian were killed in the crash. Investigators still aren't sure whether Massey was on his way to assist other officers or was in a pursuit of his own.
This accident has been probably as thoroughly investigated as any in the history of this county. And after reviewing all of the reports concerning the accident, the vehicles involved, the intersection, everything, it was my feeling that under all the evidence presented to him, there's no alternative but to file a charge.
Mr. Macy is going to vigorously prosecute this matter. We're going to vigorously defend it.
Massey's attorney says his client wasn't at fault. Mike Gassaway says the brakes on the police car Massey drove had to be repaired repeatedly. Gassaway says the weeds at the accident site were 7.5 feet high and blocked Massey's view. He also questions whether the driver of the other car was careful.
It is very tragic. It is just a sad thing that happened, but it's not a thing that would require Officer Massey to be put in jail for 2 years.
Massey was released on his own recognizance. His next court appearance is scheduled September 16th. Bill Ross, Action 4, at the county courthouse.
Lake Hefner Park Rangers found the body of 33-year-old Charles Rufus Hayes lying in a ravine early yesterday morning. The victim's throat had been slashed. The Rangers made the gruesome discovery after first finding an abandoned 1980 model Cadillac. They scouted the area around the Lake Hefner and Overholser Canal, and 2 hours later, about 4 a.m. yesterday, found the body. The Cadillac belongs to Warlock Petroleum, the company that employed Hayes. Police have not found a murder weapon and report no suspects or motive in the case. As a matter of routine investigation, Oklahoma City police are checking into Hayes' business life and his personal life. Hayes was a CPA with Warlock Petroleum, a company that handled most of their financial dealings with the now-defunct Penn Square Bank. Warlock's president, Warren Shear, and Warlock's attorney, Joel Carson, both told Action 4 that although police are checking into Hayes' business dealings, they do not believe that their company's financial situation had anything to do with Hayes' death. Debbie Mash, Action 4 in Northwest Oklahoma City.
Would you like to register to vote?
Yes.
Okay. Do you live in Oklahoma County?
Voter registration among blacks in the Oklahoma City area has been low over the last few years. One of the reasons, according to Urban League officials, is the non-availability of registration services. So the League is making an effort to solve the problem. Today, a registration booth was set up at a Northeast Side shopping center in an effort to make registration easier. The response so far has been good. Most people, when given the convenience of registering, have done so, but there are still problems for black voters, according to officials. Some say registration policies in other parts of the nation are not fair. The federal government is looking into that. But here in the Sooner State, with registration drives like this one, Urban League officials feel they will have a stronger say in local politics. Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
This plot of land in central Oklahoma once yielded about 35 bushels of wheat. It's now a sludge pit, primarily salt water and rock. Debris left a year and a half ago by the oil company that drilled on this land. The well never produced and the company never really cleaned up their mess. Thousands of farmers in the state have the same problem. Their land is littered with sludge pits and equipment that an oil company never cleaned up or picked up. But a new bill, authored by State Senator Ray Giles, will give farmers a helping hand in getting their land back in shape.
Well, it provides the tools for the Corporation Commission to set up the rules and regulations to enforce the law, which would require oil companies to clean up slush pits in 12 months after the well is completed, and also remove any unnecessary debris that may be there and restore land that they're not going to find necessary to use for production of that well if it's a producer.
Senator Giles says the new law won't turn the slush pits into prime farming land overnight, but he adds that the law is a positive step for farmers and for conservation. Debbie Mash, Action 4 in Pocasset, Oklahoma.
The next time you see employees stocking the cigarette shelves at your favorite store, you'll probably also see a big price increase. The major U.S. cigarette manufacturers, fearing negative reaction to an unprecedented tax increase, will begin step-by-step carton price boosts. They will total more than 80 cents a carton by January. Next week's increase is expected to be about 35 cents a carton. The increase comes in the so-called sin tax, which was part of a bill passed last month to raise more than $99 billion during the next 3 years. The federal excise tax does not officially go into effect until January 1st. Locally, large cigarette distributors in the city say they don't see a run on tobacco at the old prices. But today, some cigarette buyers say the new prices may change some old habits.
I'm going to smoke as long as I can afford it. And when the time come I can't afford them, well, you know, if the tax go up and I feel like I can cut back, well, I'll just quit.
I might quit. I don't know. I wish I could quit anyway.
When cigarettes get up to $1 a pack, you know, that's awful high, and I've really been thinking about quitting now.
Because I suppose anything we like, we'll do like we do with anything else we like, no matter what it is, we pay it. Maybe go without something else.
But old habits are tough to change. And the big cigarette companies say they're not concerned. They say most smokers would not decrease their habit over the long run anyway. Kurt Autry, Action 4.
I was walking towards a camp over here, and someone said the canoe was getting ready to go over this dam here, and said run get some help, that they're not going to make it. So I ran back this way and told them that someone was coming over that, and I looked back and the canoe had went down and the two people fell out. No one never came back up.
One of the most major expenses of the Department of Transportation, for example, is trying to keep the right-of-way clean. One of the great handicaps of keeping the right-of-way mowed so that it is attractive and beautiful and clean is because so many out-of-state tourists litter our highways as they come through.
This simulation is used by the safety department to prove a point. Without using a seatbelt, a car wreck at even 24 miles an hour can kill. But real lives are lost in car accidents each year. Oklahoma is headed for a record 1,000 traffic fatalities in 1982. And yet less than 10% of Americans ever buckle up. Diane Steed is with Protection Connection, a 2-day seminar dedicated to reminding folks the importance of buckling up.
Every single trip, every time you get in the car, make that connection and fasten that safety belt, because chances are this is the trip that you're going to have an accident you're not thinking about. And with that safety belt on, you're going to be conscious, you're going to walk away from that accident and without a scratch.
Some people may dispute just how much of a difference wearing a seatbelt actually makes. That's the reasoning behind the condenser, a mechanical machine that moves up to 25 miles an hour. The condenser basically just shows that buckling up is more than just a good idea. It may save your life. I was just traveling 7 miles an hour with my safety belt on. Otherwise, this story might have a different ending. Debbie Mash, Action 4.
A vehicle apparently attempting to pick the armed robbery suspect up was coming by the location at the same time and sped away eastbound. The officer exited his car. As he did, the man pulled a pistol from his belt, cocked the pistol, and pointed it at the officer. Officer Hamilton fired 2 shots. Apparently both shots struck the man in the chest. He was taken to South Community Hospital, where he was pronounced dead on arrival.
He's thinking about it, but he hasn't clearly made up his mind, and he hasn't made an announcement. We don't have a committee. We're not in that business right now. What both of us are doing this fall is campaigning for Democratic candidates who are running for the House and Senate, and also for people who are running for governor.
It was roundup time at the Lakeview Terrace Trailer Park this afternoon. 1,000 pounds of mean bull kept Oklahoma City animal shelter workers busy. No one knows who the bull belongs to or even what direction it came from. They do know it rammed into at least 1 car and several fences before being cornered in this backyard. However, catching the bull was not going to be easy. He was big and getting quite upset with his would-be captors.
We ran pretty fast and got around the other side of the car, but a car was coming down the street and he jumped over the hood of it and dented the hood in, and that's about the time I thought, I think I might just go back to the house and stay in.
A few minutes later, the bull decided it was time to move on to another yard. The roundup crew decided this time they would put up their own fence to keep the charging bull at least in one place. There were those who had doubts officials could do that.
Pretty safe up here.
But after the makeshift fence was in place, the bull was easily coaxed into an open trailer. The animal is now city property until an owner can be found. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
Another day at work means another day without pay for 21-year-old Shauna Warren. She's worked at Cosmopolitan Lady for 11 months, and even though she hasn't been paid for 10 weeks, she hasn't given up her job or hope.
As long as the members are here wanting to take classes, I'm going to be here giving them.
Have you received promises that you would be paid?
I've received promises that I will know within the next couple of days whether or not we will be paid. And of course, eventually, you know, we've got a lawsuit going on, so eventually in the next 10 or 20 years, we'll get our pay. So I'm just hoping, keeping going.
But promises from the boss won't pay the bills, so the employees have hired an attorney. Grover Muskowski says today is payday or else.
Yes, there is an indication indirectly that I've received, albeit I have not been in touch with the owner of it. I have an indication that he is to pay them some money, at least half of their wages due and owing, immediately, and by the end of this working day, or the ladies will leave.
The air is filled with excitement when cattlemen get a chance to buy surplus longhorns from the Wichita Mountains Wildlife Refuge. 111 animals were auctioned off today. Bidders spent up to 10 times more for a longhorn than they'd pay for a commercial cow. Newt Newman was glad to buy a longhorn bull calf for $2 grand.
Nothing more than an investment. You don't fall in love with them. They add a lot to the scenery. Yes, it's very nice. The esoteric value is, it enhances the old homestead.
For years, the longhorn was snubbed by cattlemen. The rangy cattle couldn't put on enough pounds to be profitable. But in recent years, Texas longhorns have become more popular as beef prices have tumbled.
The longhorn bull, the calf that's produced is skinnier, and we don't have the calving defects. They're more disease resistant and these types of things. So this is why there's a real interest in it right now, particularly in the commercial cattle industry.
Longhorns are likely to retain their newfound respect as long as beef prices remain low and cattlemen remain eager to get the most for their money. Scott Wallace, Action 4 at the Wichita Mountains Wildlife Refuge.
It was time to go back to work at the Oklahoma City General Motors assembly plant, and the workers couldn't be happier to be doing their jobs again. The entire first shift had been laid off for about a month. Employees stayed at home until the plant could retool for the 1983 model cars, and it was also time to clean the paint shop. GM officials say the brief layoff was needed since auto sales were down and inventory was up. Workers are still getting readjusted to the job of making cars and don't expect to finish more than 100 autos today. At full capacity, the first shift is able to turn out 600 cars a day. In fact, things were so slow today that many people found themselves idle until other parts of the plant got in gear. Nevertheless, it didn't take away from the joy of being back.
Well, everybody's glad to be back to work, and of course I'm glad to have them back to work, and it's just nice to be running again.
The GM assembly plant heavily depends on rail service to ship in supplies and to ship out the finished product. But the railroad engineers are on strike now, and that could derail plans for the GM assembly plant to gear up to full operation, which means some 2,400 workers could once again find themselves out of a job. Ed Stewart, Action 4 at the GM assembly plant.
Volunteers at the Oklahoma Horsemen's Association headquarters were busy calling voters.
Janine, this is Mike Fagan from the Oklahoma Horsemen Association.
Okay.
And I'm just calling to remind you that today is Election Day. We sure would appreciate your support and your vote.
In the last few weeks, the association has contacted just about every registered voter in Oklahoma County. These volunteers say parimutuel betting would be good for the state's economy and would not cause an increase in crime. One man they weren't able to contact went to Dunbar School to cast his ballot. Governor George Nigh voted about 10:30 this morning. The fate of State Question 553 may rest on how many people follow the governor's example and go to the polls. Public opinion surveys show about 56% of the people in favor of 553. But both opponents and supporters of parimutuel betting say turnout is the key. They agree a large turnout would make passage of 553 more likely. The parimutuel issue has caused quite a stir, but the governor has refused to take a stand on the issue, and he was tight-lipped about his vote today.
I stated 4 years ago when I ran for office as governor and was successful in being elected that I would not take a public stand on parimutuel, that it's a question that the people will have to decide. That's still my position. That's really hard to find.
It provides an outlet for them to buy tickets, get information, because there'll be an information booth there. There'll also be a concession stand there where they can buy refreshments and restrooms and windshields and also forced heat blowing, so that they really are pretty well protected and have all the comforts too.
Ladies and gentlemen, Governor George Nigh, Mayor Patience Letty.
As a resident of South Oklahoma City, it is even more significant, it seems to me, that the occasion that we celebrate here today occurs on this particular spot, because as all of you know, this river has been the dividing part of this city for years and years, and I think that this is the time that we all come together once and for all in the greater Oklahoma City, and that we do it right here in the middle of this river.
The Oklahoma Transportation Department is warning motorists to slow down on Interstate 40 from Choctaw Road to the Pottawatomie County line. For the next 3 months, traffic will be restricted to one lane in each direction because of road repair. The department will also be upgrading 4 bridges on that strip of interstate. Officials expect to pour at least $5 million into the project. Also, work crews are planning to resurface the entire 7.5 miles on I-40 from Choctaw to the Pottawatomie County line. The road surface is now 9 inches thick. However, in the coming months, it will be thickened to 10 inches. After years of deterioration, the Transportation Department decided, unless the repair work started now, the road conditions would make traveling difficult for motorists. When the cold weather arrives in December, all lanes will be opened once again, since the season is usually bad for road construction. Work will resume in March of next year. Officials estimate the I-40 job not to be completely finished until October 1983. Ed Stewart, Action 4 on I-40.
Many of today's popular characters are those movies, TV personalities, or video games that have been a big hit this year. Like Pac-Man, Mr. and Ms. Muncher are very popular with the kids. Another character that has been big with children is lovable E.T. This young man could have won an E.T. t-shirt last night, but not today. U.S. Marshals have removed all the dolls and prizes resembling him because the Midway merchants did not have permission to sell them. For some of the booths, the removal has had no effect. Does it affected your business? Has anybody asked about E.T. t-shirts or anything like that?
No, they haven't asked me at all. And I don't know if it affects it because I didn't have them up very long.
But for others, the missing E.T. has meant missing dollars.
They just said, you know, they didn't get any royalties for it, so we couldn't give them away or sell them.
Feel like it's affected your business?
Yes, a lot. A lot of people have been asking for it, and we just don't have it.
There's still a trace of E.T. here at the fair. These balloons have a little so-called creature on them that bears a strong, almost mirror resemblance to E.T.
These girls are members of the Future Farmers of America chapter in Canute. This limousine heifer is owned by Shelley Spitz. Her friend, Susan Borger, is helping prepare the heifer for competition. It takes a lot of time and energy to get an animal ready to show because there are several things that must be done.
You gotta wash it, and you gotta fix its tail, and you gotta brush its hair, and you gotta put stuff on its hooves to make them shine. You put show foam in them, and you gotta brush your hair with brush hoods.
Winning at the state fair isn't that financially rewarding, but Shelley says she isn't competing just for the money. She likes to be able to say that an animal she raised is better than all the rest. It's the glory in winning. That's why so many youngsters want to be a part of the competition at the state fair. Ben McCain, Action 4, at the state fairgrounds.
The once mighty Oklahoma oil and natural gas industry is in the middle of an economic tailspin. Recent evidence, yesterday's announcement by the Oklahoma City-based GHK Corporation that they will have to reconstruct financially. According to most, the failure of Penn Square Bank are the majority of GHK's problems. When Penn Bank went under, GHK lost a $350 million credit line. But there are other factors to contend with. The national recession is one reason. Another is the use of alternate energy sources. Coal is in direct competition with natural gas and oil. And here in Oklahoma, coal is becoming increasingly popular with many energy companies.
We found that coal, as opposed to natural gas, is considerably cheaper. We anticipated in the late 60s that there would be some pricing problems and began building coal-fired generating units. In the month of July this year, for example, coal was $1.43 per million BTUs, whereas gas was $2.06. Considerable economic difference there. We're not abandoning gas at all, but we are adding coal as the years go by.
The problems the GHK Corporation face are not unique. Other oil and gas companies have been hurt by an oversupply of natural gas and the search for alternate energy sources. For some, the slowdown in drilling operation could mean disaster. But for GHK, only time will tell. They still have 130 producing wells, and most of them are in the rich Anadarko Basin. Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
Captain Billy. This is Cub Scout Donald Howison.
Hi.
Hello, Donald. Glad to meet you.
Same thing. Would you like to buy a Scout ribbon ticket?
I certainly would. How much is that?
$1.
$1. That certainly is worth that. There you go.
Thank you.
Good luck to you. Good meeting you, Donald.